Hello, and welcome back to Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish up this weekend, the special selections as we do on most weekends, with something that I have no idea what I'm getting into here. Eric Rayfinger says, "Hey man, big fan of the channel. For my special selection, I like to go with the song 17 Years to Hatch an Invasion by Jardín de la Croix. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Cheers." So I have no idea what I'm even in for here. Other than the fact that we got this really cool what is these origami cranes for the album cover. That's all I got to go on here. So yeah, let's get into this. Let's see what's up here. Yeah, so we got some nice math rock style stuff. So I got a 6 pulse from the guitars, but yeah, lots of crazy stuff going on at the time. I really like that low end on the piano. It sounds real nice. Yeah, so very interesting. We're reusing the same musical idea as before, but shifting from really fast attacks to held out notes instead. Yeah, that drummer's doing a lot of work keeping this all together. Ooh. Really nice rhythmic synergy through the whole band here. Yeah, really nice 4 feel. That guitar's doing a lot of work trying to make it feel like it's not, but nice little yeah, this is just a really warm atmosphere. I'm digging it. They're doing a lot of cool stuff in 4. And a lot of it's playing off, at least recently, we're doing a lot of stuff with these pedal notes here. And I think the pedal notes and the odd number of notes that aren't pedals with the static note length is really creating a lot of interesting rhythmic patterns. Alright, now we move to something akin to 7/4. Yeah. Very nice counterpoint here between the two guitars. Although maybe not counterpoint, they're rhythmically the same. Yeah, so we're in like a nice 6 right here. Maybe a 3, but 6 feels better. Ooh. Maybe we're still in 4. This is a nice 6 against 4 section here then. Yeah, so lots of really cool stuff in there. I do really dig how they find a way to fit everything in layering wise. They have their piano, which I don't remember hearing much of at the end. 2 guitars, a bass, and a drum. But almost every part is moving. There's a lot of notes being played per bar when you combine all the instruments together. Even I don't know, I'm almost wager to say that there's a lot of notes being played per beat. When you start adding in all the instruments and how frequently they're playing. So there's definitely some really interesting compositional stuff here as far as melody writing goes. Because the foundational elements in here are kind of melody lines. They're a bit more rhythmic than some of the stronger melodies that are written. So I kind of don't want to venture into too much conversation about counterpoint because I believe that even though they would function as melodies in most songs, maybe a weaker melody. In this track, they're really building the foundational work. So it's kind of difficult to talk about. So this is where it gets weird because, like I said, in a different song, some of these faster lines would definitely be spotlighted. They are key melodies. But in this track, everybody's doing that. So your key melodies are the ones who are actually slowing it down a little bit and kind of holding out some notes a little bit more than the rest of the band. So we do have a lot of moving parts, and there's parts of me that's like, yeah, we should be talking about counterpoint here. We should be talking about counter melody. But honestly, the way that it's mixed, and the way that all of the instruments are composed against each other, there really isn't a lot of counterpoint. And the one section that I brought it up in, um, by the end of it, I kind of think it's just really interesting harmony because there's not a lot of rhythmic element that's going on uh, juxtaposed between the two. It's mostly note relationships and note range. They both kind of start around the same place, but one takes the melody up and the other takes the melody down. As far as note range goes, and so it's more of harmonic work, I would say, than melodic work. Um, but even if we don't touch on counterpoint specifically, there's still a lot of conversation we can have about composing so many notes per beat, per bar. There's a lot going on in here, and none of it really seems to get muddy, despite some of the grittier textures being used on at least one of the guitars has like a super gritty texture to it. So there's some really cool composition stuff going on in here. That's basically segmenting each of the faster sections into note ranges. If you go back and listen, the two guitars tend to have a note range gap between them. In almost every section of the song, they very rarely start to bleed into each other's octave. Or maybe not. Sometimes we're only looking at like 5 notes away, so a little over half an octave. But it's still enough of a gap to really differentiate between the two instruments on a range wise, because we can't differentiate them on volume. Almost everybody in the song has a very similar volume. We can't differentiate on speed of the phrasing because almost everybody's playing 16th or 8th notes. It's just a constant barrage of notes being played. Um, so the next thing, and we can't really we can't differentiate on space. We can't have somebody play for the first 2 beats and somebody play for the last 2 because everybody's playing all the time. So one of the ways that they differentiate between the between the instruments is voices, ranges. Um, you'll have one guitar taken up here, one guitar taken down here, and then usually some sort of bass instrument. I noticed that at the beginning, the piano kind of filled this in, and somewhere around the middle, the piano stopped playing, and we got an electric bass taking control of the lower end. And yeah, that is definitely a way to segment your instruments musically in a way that'll allow them all to stand on their own without getting into each other's way. We talk a lot about spacing on the channel, providing or putting rests on some instruments so that you can open up that soundscape, that area of the sound for another instrument to come in and play on. And that is definitely one way that you can introduce clean layering. But this is another one where every instrument gets its own range of notes and nobody really steps on anybody else. And it provides clear areas for each instrument to exist in. And they just do a phenomenal job of that. The mix, definitely, you can't ignore. Any time that you get heavy layering and lots of notes flying at you, your engineer is going to be a key. They're going to have a key role in making sure that the song sounds listenable and not a chaotic mess. But you can't discredit the composition either. Like I said, they did a very good job at ensuring that every instrument was segmented. They had their own place in the music. And they did so with note ranges. So that's pretty cool. That's something I don't think we've touched on much with the channel as far as good layering practices go. But what really interests me here, yes, there's some good melody work, but I don't think it's the strong part of the song. To me, the core strengths are the rhythmic aspects. The way that we have time signature changes, the polyrhythms, the different accents between different instruments, which creates these pulses that we feel throughout each of the sections. Um, Everybody kind of working on their own time signature in some places, kind of laying into that polyrhythmic idea. That is the key to this song. That's the most important takeaway for me. If I was ever to write something that was uh, heavily layered rhythmically, this might be a song I come back to as an example of that done right. Um, because every instrument, like I said, is playing fast notes, or nobody's really taking a break. But we end up with a lot of these sections that feel like every instrument is in their own time, even though they're all mostly playing straight 8th or 16th notes. Not really having any break, not really holding out many notes too long. Everybody's just kind of just dropping a ton of notes per bar. And despite that, despite how similar everybody's rhythmic patterns are, they still end up creating heavy polyrhythmic ideas through the use primarily of accents. Though the drummer does get away with playing less notes, I feel, than the guitars. And it allows him to stand out a little bit and also lay down a beat that can juxtapose a time signature or a pulse that the guitarists are playing in. And that's when we start seeing some of our polymeter stuff. Um, I mentioned somewhere at the end, if you listen to the guitars, I said it was like 6 against 4. And if you listen to the guitars, they are playing. There's definitely a strong 6/8 pulse. You got two groups of three. Da 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 da. And to me, I mean, yes, they could be in 4/4. What would that be? Eighth note triplets? Maybe 16th note triplet. I guess I'd have to go back and listen and really figure out. But yes, you could write this in 4/4 triplets, but the way that they're really accenting the first beat of each group of three, or the first note of each group of three, really gives it a strong, almost waltzy feel. You get this real strong 6/8. Um, well, it would be a fast waltz because it's in 6/8. But then I think the drums are out for like 4 bars, and when they come in, they're playing a slower 4/4, where these, like I said, either 8th or 16th note triplets would fit into a 4/4 bar, and it's just got this heavy groove to it, and depending on which instrument you listen to, you're going to get a different time signature out of it. And you can, at least I found it easy to bounce back and forth between the two. It's sometimes my brain will just lock into a time signature, and I'll be like, okay, this feels like 4/4 no matter what I listen to, and this drum over here is just playing, an interesting rhythmic pattern inside of 4/4. No matter what, I can't unhear the 4/4. But with this song, I could very easily switch back and forth between some of the time signatures that they were playing with when they were introducing polymeter. Um, but not only that, but I found them to do some really interesting things with time signature overall, as far as utilizing emphasized notes, really accenting on different beats. Um, we had an a 4/4 section turn into a 7/4 section, and it was interesting because sometimes it felt like they reached the 7/4 by adding a beat, no, by subtracting a beat. um so you would have like 4/4 3/4 4/4 3/4, and the second group would just be cut short by a beat. But other times it felt like they were really leaning into it and maybe starting the next section a little late, or maybe extending the pattern into the next section. And they were really playing around with their accents to, even though they were sticking in 7/4, when you count it, it is 7. Well, it might not be 7/4 particularly, but you get a 7 pulse phrasing out of it. Um, and you can count 7 all day long through that section. But some of the times when they repeat, it doesn't feel like they're repeating um, on beat one, which would be the eighth beat. Sometimes it feels like they're repeating into the next bar. And I don't think that that's because they're changing time signature. I think it's just really creative use of patterns. Um, we see this in, it's almost becoming a meme. We see this in Meshuggah, where the song is in 4/4, but they're constantly restarting the pattern on non first beats. So it feels like it's constantly changing time signatures into all these weird things until like the 25th repetition when we finally land on beat one again, in 4/4. And these guys are doing something like that, where they're just kind of ignoring that first beat and restarting patterns or extending patterns past it. And you get these really funky sections that feel like they're in weird time signatures, but if you really sit there, and the key I think is usually listening to the drums. The guitars are sometimes doing really interesting things with pattern length and note accentuation, but the drums, at least one of the drums, usually the hi-hat, there's one section you could actually it was like the drums cut out except the hi hat, and they were dropping the beat down. I think that was when we were in four, and they did like four hits, and then everything came back in. The hi hat did a lot of work of keeping the time signature. So if you really key into that for some of these stranger sections, you'll find that the time signature is not really changing. We're not into weird writing where we're alternating time signatures every bar or something. But the composition itself is really giving the illusion of like ever changing time signature, a constant metamorphosis of time, and I love that. Really cool stuff there. Um, so yeah, they do remind me of some of the math rock stuff and even some of the earlier gent stuff that really went into the rhythmic ideas. But to me, this is a lot more accessible because I feel like at least one of the instruments is always trying to give the listener an indication. I never found it really too difficult to find a strong pulse, regardless of what time signature we're in, or what section we move to. There were quite a few time signature changes. There were quite a few sections that played with rhythm to give the illusion of a time signature change, even though we might not have actually changed one. And something in there was giving me the idea, listen to me, and you can, nod your head to the music. There's always at least one instrument, one sound, one voice that was providing some direction, a little bit of a roadmap. And I love that. Like I said, it has some of the complexity that people who listen to these styles of music enjoy, but I think it is a little more palatable and maybe even more listenable for your average music listener because there's still strong beats throughout. And we need that. I will always appreciate the Meshuggahs out there for just really pushing the envelope, but it's not accessible, not super accessible by any means. And I think we need bridges like these guys who kind of bridge the gap between the inaccessible and the accessible and finding a nice medium between the two. So, yeah, excellent, excellent suggestion. I don't think we would have had these on the channel if not for special selections, because I don't remember seeing their name in the spreadsheet, but I'm glad we got to do them. These gateway bands, these bridging bands, I truly do really love them. Not just because they help me personally get into some of the more esoteric or harsher musics or whatever, um, but I think that they do act as a really good gateway between genres, and they can help bring people into more esoteric, more artsy, more difficult to listen to things, and we need that. We really do need to add accessibility to the inaccessible. And I don't think making the inaccessible and watering them down or dumbing them down, however you want to word that, I don't think that's the way to go about it. I don't think Meshuggah needs to come down to radio rock levels. But I do think we need someone between radio rock and Meshuggah to help introduce people to these ideas because harsh elements are difficult to get into. by definition, they are harsh. Most people do not enjoy harshness in any aspect of their life. So we really need these aspects that maybe break down one element, so that you can get more used to odd rhythms. And once you get used to odd rhythms, well, that's one less hurdle to get into some of the harsher musics. Um, and I've talked about this before, even with bands like Ginger. Ginger, I've called a bridging band or a gateway band before into harsh vocals, because I think they do a very nice job of, one, providing some of the best harsher vocals that I'm aware of, as far as listenability and understandability. And two, a lot of the music, even though it is really heavy, is very groovy. I've called it what have I called it? Doom metal light before. I think black metal light, death metal light. I think that's what I've called them before. They don't necessarily have the harshness of death metal, but they have the heaviness of death metal, and they interfuse that with a lot of groove. And I think it's just a fantastic way to bring people who aren't used to listening to that style of music into it, by making the hurdles just a little bit lower. You don't have to jump as high to get into this stuff. And then, of course, even that's not perfect. We need, the bridges between that and then, mainstream radio rock and stuff like that. And it's all the little incrementations. Nobody woke up one day and just started listening to the heaviest music. You gradually got there through little bands that introduced you to different ideas. And the more bands we have that provide these that fill in these small gaps, well, eventually we'll just have a bridge with no jumping to be done at all. And you'll have a nice path to get from, super palatable music to music that's difficult to get into. And once we get there, I mean, I think a lot of the work will be done where some of this harsher stuff kind of gets a different change in perception, because it's not so difficult to get into anymore. I've kind of gone on a rant here, though. This is no longer about Jardín de la Croix. So we're gonna end. We're gonna end my ramble and finish this off. Those are my thoughts and a little bit more about Jardín de la Croix. 17 years to hatch an invasion. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this song. If you enjoyed it, didn't, anything that stuck out to you. Any sort of context, especially the name of the band. I kind of get a French vibe from the band name, but I don't know if the band themselves are French. So yeah, kind of clue me into some history on this, where they fit in to music, rock music, metal music, wherever you want to put it. And yeah, when you're done commenting, you can check out the description box for some links adjacent to the channel. If you're interested in the Twitter or the Discord or the Patreon, that's where you can find those. Underneath is a like, a subscribe, and a bell. All three of those things help out the channel immensely. I have one more video coming out after this one. It's a bonus for the week. It doesn't adhere to any sort of theme, but I'm going to do it anyways. Just kind of having one video a week that I have complete control over, kind of nice. Lets me put some stuff on the channel that I don't think typically would get on here. So, and then of course tomorrow we start video game soundtrack week, and it's looking like we're going to have a highly requested track starting out the week. This has been in the comments, not so much recently, but I've seen it pop up a lot, I guess about a year ago. Yeah, I guess about the time, a little bit after we started the channel. I saw this popping up a lot, and I'm kind of excited to get to it. I got a bit of a history with the game series, even if I've never played this specific game. So, like I said, it's a kind of a popular choice, even if I haven't seen specific requests for it lately. Until next time, though, remember to be critical, not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos. For some reason, I was not ready for this. See ya. Wait, no. Oh my jeez. Here's the credits. See ya, bye.